my name's Courtney and thank you for tuning in for another video. If you're new here or you're just finding me, a little bit about me. I am a social sciences grad, so I've had a background in psychology and counselling, worked in research as well as people and culture, and I've always had this fascination with potential and also personal development and what is in the way of reaching that potential. So I guess I started this just to start to talk about this topic and to share some things I've learned along the way and to kind of get the discussion going on reaching your potential and finding fulfillment in your life. I've had a very productive morning, have gotten all of our herbs planted, the lemon tree is out there in the sun and getting some well-needed nutrients. And got a new outdoor setting and done just a full clean of the apartment, which has felt good. Basically reset for the week ahead. So I've got my tea. If you want one as well, pause me and I will wait here because I don't have much other choice. I'm stuck in this box. So I'll be here sipping away while you boil the kettle, do your thing and come back and join me. I guess I just wanted to have a little chat today about being a goal getter and not just a goal setter. Ever since I was young, I was always obsessed with processes and finding ways to do things and I guess organization. For example, I used to go through all of our VHS tapes. Yes, we had VHS tapes and organize them and label all of them, even though they, already have movie titles anyway. Make sure they were all alphabetically organized. I don't know, I had all different systems I went through and put little labels on and just liked everything to kind of be in its place. But it was also just fun. I found that enjoyable. I don't know what that says about me. But anyway, so I guess that's always continued as I've grown up. I've always enjoyed being given a process, being given a way to go about things, and I've become hooked on it. And I guess that's kind of what also led me to, looking into psychology to study, looking into counseling and finding ways to do things in an effective manner to make your life the best it can be, which, all sounds great in theory and is certainly not a bad thing to want. But I find that in the self-help world, in the endless, countless hours of content we can find on the internet, you can kind of get stuck in a web of this endless amount of information, these endless ways of doing things, that you almost become more hooked on putting together your plan, putting together your organization, putting together, your to-do list or your goals list. And that's almost more what you're focusing on than actually following through and achieving those goals. I guess I've really had to try and focus on undoing my thinking and finding ways to really focusing on the follow through rather than just the setting up an organization of the goals. Because you know what? It also feels really great when you're sitting there and you're writing the goals out. You can almost visualize yourself achieving it. And that's almost like a little, dopamine hit or little, pat on the back for yourself, just the fact that you've sat down and written it out. It's almost like you've already achieved the goal, but the reality is in the real world, in actuality, you haven't. And there could potentially be a long way to go before you actually do. So how do we bridge that gap and what are the ways and what are the things we can put in place to actually make ourselves practically achieve these goals and not just sit there dreaming about it or putting together the perfect list or the perfect method of doing it, because it's all well and good to have it on paper or in your diary or wherever it exists. But if that's not then transferring to the real world and you're not then seeing the results, then it's almost all for nothing because you're actually not getting to where you want to be in life. And you know what? It actually almost can become like, you might not realize it at the time, and it's certainly not something I've always cottoned onto myself, but it's almost like an excuse not to do, because there can be so much comfort and so much, like I said, woohoo, I've done this, I'm one step closer to my goal, sort of mentality around it that, it's almost like a justification for not doing that day. I've written out my list of how I'm going to lose weight or complete this course, whatever it might be, but I actually haven't done anything that would bring me a step closer in practical terms to that goal. I've written the list and now I'm going to just sit around for the rest of the day. Not that there's anything wrong with sitting around and going to the movies and doing all those things. It's all about balance, isn't it? I guess my point is this is for if you're getting stuck in that and not actually progressing to where you want to be. I especially found that while I was studying psychology, I loved things like understanding and changing human behavior. I loved cognitive behavioral therapy. I loved all these things that had such an A, B, C, D process to achieving things. And honestly, I became hooked. I put all those systems in place for myself, but just forgot the key ingredient, which was follow through and achieve. In saying all this, it's not to put down putting a plan in place, because, you know, it also makes you more likely to achieve your goals by doing that. And I certainly probably wouldn't have done some of the things I have done without those things in place. But it can also be a way of overcomplicating things for yourself. And I guess it's also not the fun side of achieving goals either, for self-help or for talking about goals or setting goals. You know, the fun side isn't the dirty work you actually have to do to make changes to your habits or to make the changes that you want to make. The fun side is dreaming big and seeing yourself doing all these things from the comfort of your couch or wherever it might be that you're dreaming up all these beautiful big ideas. But if that's not matched by the hard work and, you know, the daily consistency of habits and tasks and things you actually have to do to turn those goals into a reality, then what's the point? So here are some of my tips to help you turn yourself from a goal setter to a goal getter. And hopefully one day I would like to kind of put this out in writing in more detail, but I guess this is kind of a bit of an overview of my thoughts around the topic. One of the things I'd say is to start small in your goal setting. So obviously I'm not discouraging, as I said, the goal setting process, but start with things that are achievable. So if your goal is to change a habit, what is the smallest version of change that is likely? And can you do that every day of the week, for example? And tick off as you go throughout the week to see if you actually achieve it. Once you feel comfortable with that step, then progress to the next step. Rather than going from 0 to 100, start small, make sure that you're comfortable and have made those changes, and then progress to the next increment. Give yourself a time limit in the goal setting. So this one has been massive for me personally. Setting yourself a timer or, you know, a time frame for setting that goal, for doing that organizational work means that you're more likely to follow through. I mean, studies show that you're more likely to spread out the workload to the time frame that you have. And that's not always ideal or helpful or effective. So especially in this case, if you find that you're spending way too much time going over and over your organization, your lists, your goals, give yourself a time frame and that's it. You are not allowed to spend any more time on it for the day, for the week, or for the month. Try and change your mindset around results. I think part of all this also comes back to being accountable, and not in the way of, again, sitting there and going over and over our plans, but in terms of having a quick check process that we can come back to. So, you know, if for example you want to be drinking more water or sleeping 8 hours a night, you know, maybe you just get one piece of paper or get your notes app out and you've got a way of checking off each day whether you did it or not, and maybe, you know, a dot point or two as to why you might not have achieved it or what worked for you to be able to achieve it. Start to focus on where you can see those changes happening in practical terms. I think this is just a quick and easy way to not go into a full analysis of what you've been doing, but you can just quickly see visually what's worked, what hasn't, how many times it did or didn't work, and then compare it to the week after. This also gives you a real world accountability, which is the most important factor. So you can start to gain that consistency and develop that to the point that you no longer need the checking. I think the shame of this is that if you get stuck in this goal setting process too, is that you don't then see yourself actually achieving these goals. So you don't prove to yourself that you are capable of it and build your confidence in this new habit or this new, whatever it might be. So you can't actually see the proof that this is you, this is something you're capable of and something that you can incorporate in your life. Which kind of puts you back into this self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess, or this loop of just, oh, everything I tried to do didn't work out, so I'm going to reset myself and reset all of my goals, which again makes you feel better, gives you the hit, and you think that you're on the right track, but you just keep coming back to that reset rather than going, hang on, let's just do a quick course adjustment and keep following through. I think too, there will always be a reason not to do something that's different, that's hard, that's a bit of a challenge, or that puts us out of a comfort zone. So I think there'll always be that voice in your head that says, great, I've done all the work I need to do today, no need to do it again. But when it comes to sort of following through on these goals, we have to kind of learn to ignore that in a way. And that's not to say that if, for health reasons or, for anything that might be quite significant in your life, that things do get in the way. That's not to say that that is not warranted. But if you know that it's just something that you're, giving as an excuse to yourself, I'll start tomorrow, I'll do that after I do this, and then you get lost in YouTube for countless hours. Catch yourself, learn how to catch yourself and switch back into doing. So yeah, I think that once we start on the process of achieving these goals and following through on our plans, we have to learn to ignore that voice that's going to tell us, you'll be all right, don't worry about it, it's one day, and put that in its box and move forward, because unfortunately that one day becomes a repeated excuse, and it's not one day, it becomes 1 week, it becomes 1 month, it becomes a year. And we don't just stay in the same place, then we actually go backwards to what we want to go to. So yeah, just know that that little voice in your head will always make you feel like it's okay not to take the leap that you need to take. And one of the ways of avoiding that is by looking at your plan again and resetting yourself and making sure you're really setting your goals properly. But that's not actually going to help us bring us closer to where we want to be. Part of the reason we can stop ourselves from doing the actual things that need to be done too is a fear of failure. And I think we're living in a society at the moment which is so attached to instant gratification. Once upon a time, if we wanted to watch a TV show that we loved, we had to wait the full week, we had to tune in at a certain time. But now everything's available on demand. Social media, Tinder, all these things, we can just swipe, we can just press a button and we have the things we want. Uber Eats, all that sort of thing. And I guess this has taught us that things happen like that. Hang on. That's better. And the reality is, when it comes to achieving goals, that's not always the case. There is a long-term component to this, and we have to get comfortable with acknowledging that, knowing that it's not going to happen tomorrow necessarily, and being okay with still doing those things every day that will eventually show us that long-term change, that long-term achievement. You're not going to get it right every time. There will be things that get in the way. Life changes each week, and so many different factors that you have to deal with. So I think be kind to yourself in those moments. Know that it doesn't mean you have to completely reset your plan, or that this isn't the goal for you, or that you're incapable of it. Change that self-talk. Know that failure is okay, and it's actually a chance for us to learn, to know what works and what didn't, and to make adjustments along the way. It doesn't mean a full reset, like I said, but just a little course correction as we're going along. They're just some of my initial thoughts. I think that I could go much deeper into this topic, and probably will again in a future video, or maybe in, a written format. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything that you've faced in a similar way, or if you've had a similar experience. Let me know in the comments if you found yourself stuck in this goal setting process and listened to countless YouTubers and read books and all this sort of thing, and become hooked on the processes and the methods and all these things that make us feel like we're going to achieve our goals. But do you find yourself not actually achieving in the way that it all seems cracked up to be? And also let me know what your main takeaways have been, and let me know if this has been helpful to you. Thank you so much. Please like if you enjoyed this, and please subscribe if you would like to see more. And I hope to keep the conversation going and to see all of you achieving your potential. Oh, and if you've heard a little chirp 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 throughout this video, obviously there's the birds outside, but there is also the little pet parrot here next to me, who has been wondering who the heck I am talking to. So who knows, maybe he won't be camera shy next time round and he might make an appearance, but at the moment he's cowering and wondering what's going on.